Welcome to episode 92 of the Monday Morning Critic. Today I have one of the most prominent basketball columnists in the world. For more than over 40 years, he's covered the NBA, the ABA for decades. He's an expert. He's my personal favorite of all of them. Before there was Woj, before there was anybody, there's Peter Vecsey. Peter, welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
I loved having you on the first time. The response was overwhelmingly positive, so I have to say, what the hell's up with that Coach of the Year voting? As a Boston fan, I'm very confused.
Well, you're not the only one. It is really mind-boggling. It was so overwhelming, but the coaches seem to feel the same way.
Right.
It's baffling. It really is. It's not personal. I'm sure a lot of people I think almost everybody would say they respect Brad Stevens, whether you're a coach, player, or a fan, media, whatever. So I don't get it. Somebody in the media must have started a little campaign for what's his name, and he just won it. I don't know.
I mean, and you look, and I know it doesn't include the postseason, but you look at the way the wheels fell off, and you look at, he lost his locker room, or at least some of it. It seems as if, and it's like, it's very confusing to me, Peter.
I don't think we're ever going to get the answer. Probably the first time ever when a coach. No, it's not the first time ever actually. When a Coach of the Year got fired. George Karl, I believe, was Coach of the Year. I mean, I might be wrong, but I think when he was at Denver the last year, and he had 1 year left in his contract, and that was the year that Mark Jackson's Warriors upset them in the first round, and they would have kept him, but he wanted a new contract, and the owner said, "Really? How about we fire you instead?" And so he got the 1 year. He got paid the 1 year. It was like, $4 or $5 million, whatever, and crazy. But this was different. This was different. I don't know. Stevens, look, he's going to win. He's going to win many over the life of his career. And I remember telling Dominique Wilkins kind of the same thing. He and I were in the airport the year he lost the slam dunk to Jordan, and we were both catching a plane a little early, and he was so upset about losing, and he should have won. He really should have. His dunks were fabulous. And I told him, I said, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose some when you're younger, and then you're gonna win some you probably don't deserve when you're older. Not that happened to him, but he had certainly won at least one or two when he was a little older.
No, I completely get it, and I don't get coaching in general. I don't understand when they hire these coaches. They hire retreads. Nobody's willing to take a shot on like a Becky Hammon or somebody who could be new and innovative. And I know I'm a little bit off topic as far as, Coach of the Year, but, as it applies just to coaches in general, Peter, I don't understand the hiring of the same guys that were not winning at other places, and people expect them to win at the current place. I just don't understand.
Well, let me stop you and tell you I think you're wrong. Because this year, during the off season, I didn't look it up. I was going to look it up before I got to you, but I didn't. So you can look it up later.
Mm-hmm.
But how many coaches were hired this summer that you ever heard of? I mean, Casey got hired, by the Pistons. All right, good move. That was a good move.
Right.
I mean, look at who Charlotte hired, Atlanta hired. Like 4 or 5 teams hired guys that had never been a head coach, or our Charlotte guy was an interim coach in Orlando. And then he goes and he works for Pop, and he gets ordained, and he gets all the sacraments, and now he's a genius. So Kupchak, by the way, who signed Dang and Mozgov to outrageous contracts when he was a Laker general manager, and then he's hired by Charlotte. What the hell? And now he hires this guy who who knows if he can coach. But my point is that these franchises now, for the most part, every team is $1 billion franchise,
right?
And in some cases, $2 and $2.5 billion. How can you hire guys that have no resume in the NBA, either as a player? Then you're going to take a shot at a player. Steve Kerr was hired without any coaching experience. Doc Rivers was also. Mark Jackson was. And if you go back in time, it's endless how many guys got, Cowens was an assistant, and Russell never was. But Russell had Russell as a player. But these guys have billionaires. Billionaires allow general managers to hire these guys, and to me, it's all a guessing game. They're playing guessing games with $1 billion franchise. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
No, I do.
You're going to rebuild with a guy, and your team stinks, maybe like Atlanta, and you're on the, you're just totally turning. You renovated everything. Coach is gone. Players gone, starting over. Okay, fine. But when you're competing for playoffs and really playing, competing for credibility, I don't get it at all. I mean, Mark Jackson wasn't hired, but these guys were. It's preposterous. He ought to. Mark Jackson ought to hop on the bandwagon with Capsec. How do you pronounce his name? Capsec?
Yeah.
Yeah. He ought to hop on that lawsuit and say he's been blackballed.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's being blackballed. It's a joke. Guys like Fizdale, he can get the Knicks job, which should have been Mark's in moment one after getting into a confrontational, his first head coaching job, he gets into a confrontational thing with Mark Gasol, who never had a problem with anybody in his career.
Right.
And, again, to this day, I'm really the only one who wrote it. And people finally picked up that it was so bad that, okay, he was fired. Maybe they knew that in the beginning. But he quit. Fizdale quit. They asked him, can you coach Marc Gasol? He said no. Really? And the Knicks hired this guy, this phony car salesman. I'm like, unbelievable. Man, does he have he does some fast talking. And they fell for it. But I'm not surprised, because the Knicks hierarchy, you just look at who's running that team, and you look at their background, and, you'd be astounded. There's so much. I'm not even going to tell you what I know about, the general manager. But one of these days, if I continue to write Patreon, I will write about it. What he got caught doing. Nobody ever brings it up. But I'm not surprised. The Knicks hired a phony because they got 2 phonies running the franchise.
No, and I do stand corrected, Peter. You're right. A lot of these new hires are guys you've never heard of, but more so, okay, so let's say a guy like David Fizdale, maybe to Brett Brown's a decent coach. He's not horrible. You look at a guy like Tom Thibodeau, like what those guys are going to get you. It's just, I don't know, maybe I'm just overly hard on some of these guys, but I don't, if I'm a Timberwolves fan, I got some talent on that team. And I got a coach that, and I love Thibs when he was with the Celtics. He's a great coach. He knows his stuff. But my God, you know what the floor is with him, and you know what the ceiling is with him. Like I don't know. But you're right. They're $1 billion franchise.
let's stay on Thibodeau for a second. So he when he was in Chicago, we know he can coach, and we know that's all he cares about is coaching.
Right.
That's his life.
Right.
And so he gets into it with John Paxson, the general manager, or he was actually the president at that time, because he was overplaying guys and playing guys when they were hurt, and they got into it, and so they ended up firing him. And you talk to some of the players. I remember when Dang left that team, and I think it was before he signed with the Lakers, but maybe just as he signed. And I have a friend of mine who knows him pretty well, and he was saying that his body was gone. It was gone because Thibodeau just overplayed him and played him when he was hurt. And the kid went along with it, and look, it didn't cost him any money, obviously. He made a lot of money, and with the Lakers. So, and the same with Joakim Noah. Joakim Noah, he just, you mentioned Thibodeau's name, he'll curse him out for 5 straight minutes, what he did to his body. Not that I'm going to hold up Joakim Noah as anybody special at this point, because some of the things he's done is, I can't root for him anymore. The day he wouldn't sit with the West Point cadets for lunch because he was against the war. Really? Against the war? You're French. They're blowing up Paris, but you're against the war. What? What do you want? What do you want people to do? You idiot! So so anyway, but Thibodeau, look, all the guys that broke down under him. Just look at the injuries. Pick a guy, and you got multiple injuries. So I wouldn't have hired him, and I certainly wouldn't have hired him as the general manager and the coach. That doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work.
Right.
These owners, they're like, but Glenn Taylor's the owner of Timberwolves, and what do I expect from him? He's the same guy that was mixed up in the signing Joe Smith illegally, and it cost the team 5 number ones, and he got suspended for a year. The lawyer got suspended. McHale got suspended. He got 2 of the ones back. But this is the guy who's running that team. So what do you expect out of him? Oh, man.
While we're on coaches, Peter, all I kept thinking about last year was how, and maybe I'm stupid for saying this considering the championships, how overrated Steve Kerr is. Like, I would love to see Steve Kerr with the Celtics, with a depleted Celtics team that Brad Stevens had last year, and see him work his way out of that. I don't know. Time after time, I'm looking at this team. I personally felt it, and maybe I'm another brainless point, I really felt that Houston should not have been hanging around that long. That's just my opinion. What are your thoughts on either of those topics, Peter?
Well, Kerr, I wasn't so sure Kerr was going to be a good coach because the way I know him real well, and he just overtalks, and he thinks he's cute. But it seemed to work. I do appreciate the fact that he's constantly giving Mark Jackson credit for all the stuff that he put the team in position, had them in place to win big. I mean, Mark before he got fired told me he thought they could win the title on next year. But he is cute, Steve. He knows how. He's very glib, and I don't think. Look, we know if he had been the Knicks coach and he was hired, and then he slithered out of that, and Phil Jackson let him go after they had agreed on it. They hadn't signed it, but he would have been fired quickly by the Knicks. He couldn't have coached that team. But here he goes to a situation where you've got Curry, you've got Thompson, guys that Mark, he branded them immediately as the best shooting backcourt he'd ever seen in his life, and everybody, yeah, you idiot, yeah, okay, but they are,
right.
And he was the guy that broke in Draymond Green as a rookie, allowed him to do things that people killed him for, taking the three-pointers, and, playing him more minutes in crucial situations and letting him handle the ball and stuff out top. And what happened was when Mark left, Draymond, feeling he's better than he is good, but he feels he's better than he is. He totally disrespected Kerr many, many times in that locker room, behind closed doors, during practice, whatever. He wouldn't have done that with Mark. There would have not been that disrespect. He would have kept him in check, I say. But Draymond, we'll see what happens. I think Draymond's about one more year, and then he's got to go.
Yeah, you brought up Mark Jackson a few times, Peter. Where would you put him in the current batch of coaches, like just generally? Would you put him in the top half, bottom half, if he was to get a job somewhere, as far as just based on ability? So where would you put Mark Jackson? Would you put him in the top 50%, bottom 50%, top 20, top 10, whatever? Where would you put him in there?
I don't think anybody outcoached Mark. I read everything that Bay Area media writes. He did this wrong, he did that wrong. It's total nonsense. He took a team that hadn't made the playoffs, and God knows when. I can't remember the figures anymore. Then got them into the second round. The second year, the first year they run to 500. Second year in the playoffs, beat Denver. The third year in the playoffs, and the franchise hadn't done that in again, I don't remember when, a couple decades, and lost in Game 7. Game 7, as I recall, they were up down one with about a minute or two to go. And he didn't have any centers. His backup guard had been Jared Jack had been let go the year before. He had no backups at guard, and he took him to right to the end. Anyway, I don't think he'd ever been out-coached. And I think Barnes was hurt then too. I think Barnes. I remember Popovich telling Mark that I guess that might be the previous year. Okay, Barnes being hurt.
Right.
Can't get it right, but he said if you had a healthy Barnes, we wouldn't have beaten you. And whenever they lost to the Spurs, but look, he was able to teach defense, something he wasn't great at as a player. He was able to demand discipline. He commanded respect. You listen to all the things he said in the huddles. You hear most of these guys talk in the huddles. You and I could be saying that.
Right.
I remember my huddles when I coached in the Rucker tournament, back in the day, and I had Julius Erving, playing for me. And, my timeout would be, okay, get the ball to Julius. I knew my stuff. And so that's what these guys do. But, it's really, if I were Mark, man, I'd be so frustrated. He handles it well. I don't know how. What is he going to do, right?
Right.
That Nick job was his twice. He should have had it. And Donnie Walters admitted it, that he was the guy. He was going to hire him, and I knew it for a fact. He was going to hire him. And I remember him telling me that's when Mike D'Antoni got let go by the Suns, but he had 1 year left on his contract, and the Suns didn't want to pay it. And what was it? It was something with the Bulls wanted him. The Bulls wanted D'Antoni, but I don't think they wanted to pick up a contract. There was something there, and then so they said no. And I remember Donnie telling me, "Well, I'm going out to interview him. He is free now. The Bulls don't want him. I want to say, but I don't like the way he coaches. I can't stand the way he doesn't. His teams don't play defense." The next thing I know, he hired him. Donnie, what the hell? But again, D'Antoni's he's got a great spiel. Cotton Fitzsimmons and who was it? I'll say Cotton Fitzsimmons used to say, "Man, I got a lot of corn pone. I got a lot of corn pone, man. He can out-talk anybody. He'll talk himself into a job. And he did.
Yeah.
And he didn't belong. He did not belong with the Knicks. He wasn't ready to lose. Mark would have put up with it, would have handled it much better. And, so...
Yeah, and hearing you talk, Peter, I'm reminded of I'm watching Hard Knocks now, and they're featuring the Cleveland Browns, and I know Hugh Jackson is the coach there, and he lost a brother and I think a mother within a 2-week span, tough losses. That aside, just based on coaching ability, watching him handle personnel, I see why Cleveland is just an awful franchise. Like, you mentioned it starts at the top down. Same thing with Cleveland. I'm watching this team. I'm watching this president and GM. It's just nonsense. It's what losing teams and losing cultures are built on. It's the same type of formula that the Knicks are using, and I feel like them and the Cleveland Browns share the formula.
Well, that's when things started to go south for Mark, because the assistant general manager, who happens to be the owner's son, I wonder how he got that job. He was giving him problems. I'm not going to get into specifics, but he was demanding things of Mark, and Mark would do it to a certain extent, and then he wouldn't do it. I remember I'll tell you one thing. He wanted one of his friends to be hired and be part of the staff, and Mark didn't want to do it, but Myers, the general manager, said, you should do it. You should do it. So he did. And then the guy wanted to sit on the bench. He goes, you're not sitting on the bench. You're a video guy. You're in the back.
Mm.
You should be in the locker room. That was one of the key things. And of course, nobody knows that, and everybody got, he got infuriated with it. And then he had, I can't say for certain, but I'm sure he was the owner's son, Lakeham's son, was the one who put Ehrman, who you know is a Celtic.
Mm.
He put him up to taping the coaches' meetings secretly. I know he did. I don't want to get sued, but I'll allege he did it. And so they caught him. I think Pete Myers, the assistant coach, caught him, and that was a time then when all of a sudden the assistant coaches, sucked in management's view. Yeah, well, one of the assistant coaches was smart enough to catch the other assistant coach taping, so they had to fire him.
Right.
And then the next thing I know, Brad Stevens hires him back with the Celtics. Never call Mark. I wonder about that. How does that happen? How does a guy tape conversations and not get thrown out of the league for quite a while? He's hired almost the next day, and the assistant general manager, coach's son, Shaughnessy would have a ball with that one, and he was having dinner with the guy the next night after he was fired.
Yeah.
So it was so obvious what was going on. They were after Mark. They were after him, and all of a sudden his assistants thought, really? Well, how come those were the same assistants that got him into the second round the previous year, and then got him into the playoffs the next year? But now they're terrible. And the other guy, Brian Scalabrine.
I was just going to bring him up. Yeah.
Well, he was part of that too.
Yeah.
He felt he could get away with anything because he could see which way it was going. People were getting on him. The management was getting on Mark. They were scrutinizing everything he was doing. And so, this has never come out, but he didn't speak to Mark. He didn't speak to him for, I'd say, 2 weeks. Your assistant coach, who Mark hired only because, again, Myers was his agent. Now he's the general manager of the Warriors. He asked Mark to do him a favor and hire him. Mark asked me about Scalabrine. I said, I wouldn't hire him in a million years. I said, he's one of the biggest leaks in the league.
Mm.
I said, you won't. Nothing will be sacred in your locker room. But he did Myers a favor, so now he didn't speak to him. The season's ending. It's like, I don't know, 3 weeks, a month ago. For 2 straight weeks, he didn't even speak to him. And then he comes in the locker room one day, and, Mark says, how long is this going to go on? And Scalabrine said, well, I'm just trying to get through the season. Oh, my God.
Wow.
And then they had it out. They had it out in the locker room in front of all the assistants. Then the GM, Myers, was called in, and he did the same stuff. And then even after, so afterwards, so they demoted him. He should have been fired on the spot. Insubordination.
Sure.
He should have been fired on the spot.
Yep.
And so they demoted him to the D League or something. And the next thing you know, Woj is writing, sympathy pieces for Ehrman and Scalabrini. I mean, who do you think's his source? Those two guys. Those two guys. So now, years later, Scalabrini finally comes out and admits it was his fault. I really never get into specifics. He didn't get into specifics. He didn't say what I just told you. But so finally, it's a big deal. So now it's like 4 years later, and you admit that you're a fool.
Right.
And so it's amazing. And I'll tell you something else about that whole situation is that Jerry West and I are very good friends. And so he was a consultant for the Warriors at that time. And we spoke the night before Mark was going in to meet with the owner and Myers, Lacob and Myers. And Jerry was not at that meeting. Jerry was not going to be at that meeting. Jerry said to me, look, tell Mark he wants to save his job. Just agree to change your assistants. And I did. I told him. And he wouldn't do it. He's loyal. He said, I'm not doing it. Look, there was nothing wrong with them before. Why should I do that? And so he went into the meeting and he didn't do it. They asked him. He said, no, I'm not going to do it. And I think that part has come out. But come on.
Yeah, I mean, Scalabrini's on television here, the local,
No, I know.
But and I want to tell you, Peter, all he does is kiss ass. Like, that's why, because Danny Ainge, well, not Danny Ainge, but the Celtics organization, the rumors are that they've gotten rid of a few guys over the years that have been critical of because it's supposed to be their home network where they're supposed to get fluff and, I mean, he's like a Tommy Heinsohn Jr. in the sense that not so much in, integrity, but he just doesn't break anything down. He's never critical of the Celtics. It's always just rah. He's the cheerleader that's not on the floor wearing the skirt. It's just like, I don't know.
Give him ML Carr's towels away. But everything I read about him, he's great on radio. He's doing a great job in Boston. I don't care what he does. He's an asshole.
Yeah. And
he'll always be, deceitful. And deceit and deception are his most important products.
Yeah.
So
when you destroy somebody's credibility, it doesn't matter if you come out 4 years later and say, "Oh, oops, my bad." Like, I mean, the damage is done, Peter. The damage is done.
You think Woj came back and said, "Oh, you know what? My bad. I got misinformation on that." Come on, Woj. But that's his whole stick. I could get on him forever. He's taking care of the sources and people who aren't giving him information, he kills them, like LeBron. So, I have very little respect for him anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of where he's headed. And so Manu Ginobili retired, Hall of Famer.
Oh, first round. They should put him in right now.
Right.
Skip the ceremony. Yeah. Oh man. One of my favorites. He stopped being. I stopped rooting for him as much when Barkley discovered him. finally, Barkley. Oh, you got to go. Where were you the first 8 years he was in the league?
Yeah, right.
But I was telling my wife the other day. I was covering a playoff series between the Spurs and the Suns. And I believe it was after I'd finished television. And so I was able to go wherever I wanted. And I had my son with me he's now 30. So I don't know how old he was. It was quite a while ago. Well, you can figure it out. When was Ginobili's rookie year?
Oof.
Was it 18 years ago?
Yep. Sounds about right. I thought I read he's close to 20. I know that.
Okay, well, so my son was 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. He's 30 now. So he was with me on the trip.
Peter, 1995.
95.
Yep.
So, whoa. Wow, wait a minute.
It's his. Sorry, that's his professional debut. My bad. That's his professional debut. So he's been playing pro ball for a long time.
Oh, no question. He's playing it. Yeah.
1999 NBA, 95 for professional, 99 for the NBA.
Yeah. So it was in 99.
Right.
So if you look it up, I think they played the Suns in the first round.
Right.
And we were traveling. My son and I. He's into ball, and we were in San Antonio, and we went out with Kerr and who else was it? Danny Ferry.
Mm-hmm.
And they brought along this kid, Ginobili. and so those two guys are like they're glib. They're funny as anything. And I remember at the table they said we don't let Ginobili. We play one-on-one after practice because neither one of us is playing much anymore. So we play one-on-one after practice, and Ginobili wanted to play. We don't let him play. He's too athletic. We don't. He don't play with us. We'll find somebody else to abuse. But he hardly said a word that whole lunch. And but I love the way he plays. Who doesn't? Who doesn't love the way he plays?
Unlike the few people we were talking about before this, he truly was the ultimate team player.
Well, there are a lot of those guys.
Yep, sure.
He's one of them. He's definitely one of them. And look, he's got the titles to back him up. And Argentina, they won the Olympic gold. I mean, they had a great team, And he won over. Was he playing in Italy or Spain? I can't remember. And I'm sure he won there too. And then he won 4 titles with the Spurs. And probably, if Popovich could coach a little bit, he would have won a couple more.
So I have to say, I have an opinion around here that's not very popular in Massachusetts or the people I talk basketball with. I personally think that the Celtics should get rid of Kyrie for no other reason. Two things worry me about him. I think he's positive for the locker room. I think he's a good player. I think the threat for him to leave is real, though, and I think that knee is is going to be a major problem. And a guy coming into a potentially max contract year, those two things scare me a lot, Peter. That he would, one, leave, and two, that knee. For no other reason, those are the two reasons I would think about shipping him out. Apparently, Danny Ainge has a different opinion than I do. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I wouldn't try to ship him out. First of all, if he does leave, and I don't think he will leave. Look, his father went to school up in Boston. Yep. I think he really wanted to play there, and I think he fits, and he whatever. But if he does leave, they still have they have capable people.
Right.
It's not like he's going to leave them high and dry. I think the bigger problem this year is how to fit everybody in to get the kind of minutes without losing, the flow, the rhythm that they have, that they had last year, and now you're putting 2 starters into that lineup, and you've got to distribute the minutes, the shots, touches, and all that stuff. I think they're all unselfish. I don't think Kyrie is really gonna worry about a contract at all. I really don't. It's going to be there if he's healthy. He's going to get a max contract. I don't care from who. But I don't believe he's going to come to New York. Boy, if there's a free agent available in any year, the New York Post will say, boy, he wants to play here. And, of course, the Garden. Who wouldn't want to play in the Garden? Who would want to play in the Garden? It's like, this isn't the 69 to 74 Knicks.
Right.
This isn't Pat Riley's Knicks. It's not Bernard King and I wouldn't want to play in the Garden. It's a cesspool.
A little bit of a drop off between Brad Stevens and David Fizdale.
Yeah, Yeah. Hey, how about the owner? The owner is the difference. How about that?
Yeah.
Not that Dolan doesn't want to win. He's investing an awful lot of money, but he always seems to hire the wrong people. How some people have lasted as long as they have is preposterous. And, so I wouldn't worry. I would not worry about Kyrie's going to come if James Dolan is the owner, and I don't believe that's going to happen. I think he's going to be right where he is, and so I don't agree. But I'm gonna say it's going to be a little more difficult. Excuse me. This season than people think, just because they're getting two stars to go with what they had to finish with. But Stevens is the perfect guy to handle that, and they've got. It seems to me they've got an awful lot of guys with the right temperament and the right attitude. I was rooting for the Celtics last year. I loved the way they played, and in the last game, it wasn't only the players who came unglued, but Stevens came unglued too. He didn't do anything right.
Yeah.
So it was good experience for him. Great experience for him. Great experience for the play. And I look forward to watching him. I love coming to Boston. I would just love to make it up there. It's so easy for me. Just take the Orient ferry across to New London, and
there you go.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you, but I got, when I saw what happened to Gordon Hayward, I was watching that. A lot of hope as Celtics fans were watching it. And I know this type of injury. I've seen it before. I don't know. I just still can't. I got so nauseous. It's and it was sad because you're really pulling for the Gordon Hayward's just a good guy. Can he come back 100%? Do you think that's, or are you one of these people that believe he'll come back, but he'll never be the player he was? Do you think he can come all the way back?
I have no idea. It looked like a terrible injury, but I've seen other guys come back from terrible injuries. Maybe not right away, but Sean Livingston. Who'll ever forget his injury? The grotesque. Couldn't even look at it. It was the worst. And he came back to a point where anybody would love to have Sean Livingston on their team, but he wasn't the superstar that he was going to be.
Right.
Gordon Hayward doesn't have to be. Gordon Hayward. I was, one of my lines back when was, you don't know, you don't become a real unselfish player until you have an injury, and then it kind of makes you be unselfish and smarter. But he played smart. He played unselfish before, but he doesn't have to be the star that they're paying him for. They paid him for.
Right.
Guys blossomed. It was incredible what happened because he went down. The growth of the players on that team, and then the further growth when Kyrie went down. So all that's going to pay off this year. I'm looking forward to it. I wish I could spend some time up there and hang around that team. Actually. Yeah,
and you do a super job covering them, and I just I don't know. You're right. He doesn't have to come back, and he can gradually come back in it. I look at the Rookie of the Year voting. It was Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum. Is that how you would have voted, Peter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I would have. Yeah. Tatum was great during the year, but then in the playoffs he raised it up, and but yeah, Simmons was unbelievable, and people don't even think about giving him credit for being able to handle everything with Embiid. Embiid does not seem to me to be the easiest guy to play with. He's out there. They talk about Simmons not being able to take threes, and there's Embiid thinking he's a three-point shooter, and over dribbling and not able to hit the open man as much as he should. So he was, man. I looked at him and said, man, I don't know this guy, but Simmons was able to hold it together. Never saw him make a face, with a bad shot by Embiid or anybody else. He's a star. I like him a lot.
You stole my next talking point. I look at a guy like Embiid, and boy, during that whole series against the Celtics, Peter, all he does is talk shit. Like it's like shut your mouth and play. Like it's just it's just I don't know. He reminds me of if you took Draymond Green off the Warriors. I think they would be very similar players in the sense that it's just like shut up and play. Like I don't know. I think that Sixers team has some holes in it, and they're bigger than people think they were. Surely after that playoff series.
Well, they let a couple guys go that were really, really helpful to them in the playoffs, and I think that's really going to hurt them. We'll see again the second year playing together, Simmons and Embiid. We'll see who wants to demand more or expect more. Or I don't know. There were plenty of times that Embiid frustrated me too. Especially when he was injured. When he was, he's out there. He's injured. He can't practice a ton. Whatever. He couldn't practice a lot, or he couldn't play games. And he's out there dancing and doing his stuff. He's running on the streets of Philadelphia. I mean, what is that?
Yeah. Right. I completely.
He thinks he's all that in a bag of chips.
And I wanted to ask you that maybe the players' version of this question. I asked you the coaches before. I can't get over, Peter, how some of these guys get jobs every year. J.R. Smith, Melo, Joakim Noah, there's talk of him coming back again, Jason Terry, Derrick Rose, Chandler Parsons. I mean, these guys, especially Derrick Rose, I don't know how he keeps – he has super incentives from his sneaker company. He's making millions every time he signs a pro contract. But these guys don't strike me as locker room leaders. They're horrible on the court. Am I missing something, Peter?
Well, you covered an awful lot of territory there. Most of the guys you named, have long-term guarantees, so they're stuck with them. Parsons, one of the worst signing ever.
Yes.
Ever. Mm-hmm. And, Chris Wallace, the GM, and, they renewed his contract. And what the hell? So, the guy was injured how many times before, and then they gave him, I don't know the number, $90 million or something, and then he get hurt again, and it's like it's a joke.
Right.
How these guys, like I mentioned, Kupchak with Mozgov and Dang, like how is Wallace? What was he thinking about? Why would you think you needed Parsons, who was injured all the time, and give him that kind of money? So we go back to JR, he got his contract because LeBron was, basically calling the shots, demanding it. And, they were coming off, I think they were coming off the title that year, and he got paid. So he's still stuck with his money. And now, Melo, okay, he signed for a minimum, got all his money. I got to give Melo credit. A lot of these guys, they'll take buyouts just to go, wherever. He says, no. I'm not taking a buyout. You pay me what you signed me for. And good for you, Melo. And then so we're able to work it out. And who did I see just took $5.9 million less to go to be employed? Brian Anderson.
Yeah.
Why would he agree to leave a team that's fighting for a championship?
I agree.
To take $5.9 million less to go to a bad team, a team that, it's not a playoff team. It's definitely improved. The Suns are improved. But why would you do that? Remember when Bibby did that? Mike Bibby did that?
Yeah. Yep.
He wanted to play for the Heat, so he gave up, I'll say, $8 million or so, and his agent was totally against it. I think it was Falk, and totally against it, but he wanted to play for a winner. Okay. It didn't turn out well for him. His career was basically over. But, and David West gave up, okay, again, he gave up like $8 million to go leave Indiana, which, was on the downslide. He was a little upset with some of those guys. But $8 million, it just shows you how overpaid these guys are, most of them. But to go play with the Spurs, and, hardly got any time. He left the Spurs. Okay, now I'll go. I'm not giving up anything. He signs with the Warriors. He wins 2 championships. I don't know.
Luol Deng just took $8 million or $7.5 million to get out of that Lakers contract to for the Lakers to get rid of him. I can't figure that out.
Again, why? Why? So Dang thinks that Thibodeau's going to pick him up, I guess, and he can abuse his body some more. Look, his time to me, he's a great guy, and he's a real decent player when he was healthy and everything. But he has hardly played in 2 years now. He's going to go and he's going to help a team that's trying to make the playoffs. He's going to get minutes. If he does sign with them, I don't know why you'd give it up. I mean, hey, you want to get rid of me? You can get rid of me. Just stretch out my contract, and that's it.
Right. No, I agree. You talk about a guy that's been giving of his body. Another opinion I have that's not popular is I feel like Boston fans didn't appreciate Isaiah Thomas enough, and for some reason he's taking a lot of flack because he wanted to be a Celtic for the rest of his life, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Peter. I mean, maybe he's bringing it too far. I mean, because he keeps bringing it up, but I don't know. I see the passion with a guy like that. I like Isaiah Thomas. I think he's a guy that does the right thing a lot of times, and I loved him here. He was a big reason why we turned it around. I don't know. I think a lot of what he did gets forgotten, or people just don't want to come to the realization of how important he truly was for us.
Well, I can't say that I was a huge Isaiah fan, but there's no getting around the fact what he did,
right,
what he accomplished individually and for the team to get them where they got them someplace worthwhile, because he was such an official scorer. But he made a mistake. He made two mistakes. He got hurt. Blame him. Let's blame him for that. And second, he talked about his contract. He talked about getting a max contract, and he really should have shut up, because I would have never given him a max contract.
Right.
I don't care what you say. He's still 4'6" or whatever he is. I mean, I wouldn't have done it. But the getting hurt and then playing hurt, the Celtic fans above all should really appreciate something like that. I mean, Reggie Lewis getting hurt, being and playing hurt, and then dying, wanting to play. This guy played hurt, and it cost him potentially a max contract. Was not able to get it back together. Was pressured into coming back sooner than he should have. For the Cavaliers, wasn't good. Didn't fit. Didn't fit with the Lakers again. Wasn't ready. We'll see. We'll see how it works out for him this year. Again, he's getting paid nothing, relatively for Denver. And can he accept the role? Can he achieve enough in that role, in that diminished capacity, to show people he still deserves a big contract? He's never going to recoup what he lost by being hurt. Never. And so anybody that says that, they talked about Kawhi Leonard, that those Spurs fans, how dare he not play when he was 100%, he was 70%. How dare him? Really? Well, he knew the name Isaiah Thomas. He knew. He wasn't going to be that stupid. And so it'll work out for him one way or the other. He took a lot less by by staying in that position and not coming off of it. He could have come back and made up with Pop. Maybe Pop wasn't going to make up with him at that point, but only the Spurs could have given him whatever it was, $220 million. I'm trying to remember, 220. And then, had he been traded to the Lakers where he wanted to go, or the Clippers, they could have only given him $80 million less. And here's a guy that was willing to do that. I will take the $80 million less. Now, by being traded to a team he doesn't want to be with after this year, the Raptors, he's taking a hell of a risk. If he gets hurt, he'll be in Isaiah's situation.
Right. No.
And again, the Raptors are the only ones that can give him 4 years. I don't think they can give him 5. I think they can give him 4. I don't know. I'm not sure. 4 or 5. But they're the only ones that can give him the top So again, he's going to go to LA, play for one of those teams. So he's going to take, if he's healthy, he's still going to take about an $80 million hit. $80 million.
Yeah.
There's a man with unbelievable principle.
Yeah, he's a very confusing player, and I gotta say I like that Kawhi Leonard trade. I thought people gave it shit around here, and I'm not really sure why, because I thought it was a decent trade by both teams. I have a feeling, and I can't prove it, but I feel like I read somewhere where DeRozan might have been a little bit of a pain in the ass in the locker room. I could be way off on that. I hope I'm not, but I don't know. What did you think of that trade, Peter? I thought it was a decent trade for both sides.
Well, the pressure that Spurs were under, they confined to the Eastern Conference. They refused to send him to a place where Kawhi wanted to go. It's like I'm getting divorced from you, honey, but I'd like for you to endorse me going to live with that lady over there. Okay. But DeRozan, I never heard that he was a problem, but I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have. I'm not really tied into the franchise. When I don't know, a few years ago, I heard he wasn't that easy. But again, he's got a depression problem, and he didn't come through in the playoffs. Key games 2 years in a row. Either did Larry, but all factors in not being that upset to trade him and taking a chance with Kawhi. You want to put yourself in a position to be better than you were. I think Kawhi does that. DeRozan came up short, and then what if his depression is worse than people are letting on? That he lets on. What if it affects him? Sad, but anybody who's had depression knows how that works. You have a trigger here, a trigger there. Nobody even knows why, and it could be a positive thing. It triggers you to be into depression. So that's a big deal nowadays. It's getting a lot of guys back in the day. Had those problems and it never got out really. Never got out.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know who they were. And I was depressed thinking about it, but no. But
the end.
So I don't know. Look, it was the best they could do. They couldn't have done any better than getting DeRozan. Second team All League guy. And but they're a team in transition. The Spurs are. Where are they going?
Right. Yeah, and Pete, I have a few more questions for you. Thank you so much for this time. I could talk to you about the NBA forever. I'm having a tough time figuring out the Cavaliers here because they signed Kevin Love, they give him a lot of money, and what they're going to end up doing is they're going to be in that dreaded 8 playoff spot forever, and they're not going to get better. They're going to just twirl in that turmoil that they're going to get draft picks that can't help them. They're going to be in that you're not really going forward, but you're not going backwards. I don't know. Was it a mistake for them to not trade Kevin Love and try to get something for him?
Well, I think they have to have somebody to sell to the fans, and he's an all-star.
Yep.
And the other guy with depression, and a little bit nuts too. I know him. I know his dad. I covered his dad. And played with the Lakers and the Bullets. Stan Love. Yep. But and as we've seen, I don't care how much you give a guy, especially a guy who's still producing. There'll be no problem trading him if they want to. So why not have a guy under contract that you can move? Right. That happens all the time. Much easier to move him while he's under contract if he's producing. Now, if he's like turns into somebody like Anderson or Chandler or somebody like that, Parsons Chandler, well now you're stuck. But even in the end, the Rockets were able to get rid of Anderson, because the Suns had a guy in the same position, Yeah. If they had given too much money to what's his name, the guard, the point guard.
Booker?
No, the one they traded for him. He's now with the Rockets. And he was hurt last year. So they were able to make a trade. So you seem to think the Cavaliers could finish 8th. I don't know. What do they have besides love?
Yeah.
Look, when he was the Timberwolves franchise player, they never made the playoffs.
No, that is true. They were horrible. You're right. I do remember that. They were pretty bad.
So a good move signing him, but it's a team that's got to have to develop younger guys, and then when they see a couple guys that are developing, then that's the time to trade them, for a real good draft pick or a young guy, and then you're starting over. They are starting over. They're just starting over with the guy that was there before, but I don't think he'll be there that long.
Right. You mentioned the NBA, and I got to tell you, Peter, I think the NBA leads the way compared to the other pro sports in a lot of ways, in a beneficial way, because you look at the depression, the product that the NBA is putting out on the floor. I don't know. I love where the NBA is going. I mean, granted, the NFL is still probably at the top as far as money, not ethics or anything like that. But I really love the way the NBA is going. If I made the statement the NBA is as good as it's ever been, Peter, would that be crazy?
If you said that, would I what?
If I said that the NBA right now is as good as it's ever been, is that a crazy statement?
Well, I don't know if it's ever been. There's certainly an awful lot of talent in the league.
Yeah.
You just look at the Western Conference. You don't even have to go out of the Western Conference. Just about every team. You mentioned Booker. So here's Booker, who's playing for a bad Suns team. But geez, I mean, what's the difference between Booker and Curry? Winning.
Right.
And I read yesterday that now the Suns are looking for a point guard, and I'm saying to myself, well, wait a minute, Booker to me is Curry. I looked it up. He averaged 4.7 assists last year, and Curry averaged 6.1. Booker, he is a point guard, but he's a shooting guard too, and so is Curry. So I don't see the difference. What are you going to get? Somebody better than Booker at the point?
Right.
No.
Right.
No. So just let him know he's got to distribute more, take better shots. He takes a lot of bad shots. But they've got 3 or 4 really good young players, and then they got some veterans in there to help them along this year. And of course, they got the top rookie in the draft at center, and Chandler can help him. They've got a guy almost at every position, a veteran almost at every position that can help the young guys. Booker doesn't seem to me like a guy who really wants anybody's help.
No, and I totally agree. And I can't let you go.
He'll fight me on that. He will fight.
I can't let you go without asking you this. So obviously, LeBron goes to the Lakers. Does Magic Johnson just put a bunch of names in a hat to rebuild around him? Is that how he gets those players? I mean, I guess I get Rondo, but I mean, the Lakers are like the land of the misfit toys here. Like, I don't know. Good luck to Luke Walton this year. That's all I can say.
Well, look, he didn't want to. Rondo does not fit with LeBron.
No.
But Rondo, I'm a big fan of Rondo's, and he'll figure it out. And LeBron will figure it out too. That what, it might be easier for me if I let LeBron handle a lot more, and it'll be better for the team because LeBron won't be over dribbling all the time. I'm glad that he moved to the Lakers. I think it's great for the league to have the Lakers, at least the pretense of being strong, having a superstar like him there, and better things to come. Had he stayed with the Cavaliers, to me, it's like it would have been boring. This isn't boring.
Right.
This is exciting, and so you hired Lance Stevenson, and who else do they have on 1 year? They got a bunch of guys on 1 year deals, and that makes sense because they were trying to get Kawhi. and they held out as long as they could. They didn't get him, and so again, it's still the Clippers still have a chance to get him. But I think in the end, they'll want to play with a team that's got a better shot to win it quicker, and the Clippers won't be in that position. So you put Kawhi with that team. Now you get rid of all those one-year contracts. So you got Kawhi and LeBron, and you got those young guys. 4 or 5 young guys there. They're terrific. Maybe 3 or 4, terrific, and they're on their way.
Do you think? Do you think they tried to shop Lonzo Ball because all of a sudden he came down with this mystery injury?
No, I don't.
Okay.
It wasn't a mystery injury. I mean, he really did tear his Achilles or whatever he tore. Tore something. His ligament, right?
Right.
But no, they weren't trying to get rid of him. That was. I'm telling you, Derek. I read so much in the paper. It's such nonsense, and I don't follow. I don't have the sources or care about having the sources that I used to. But even stuff that just, if you have any common sense, you wouldn't print some of the stuff that's printed. And that was ridiculous. They weren't going to try to trade him. He fits. He'll fit in there. And again, Rondo will help him. And kid's a competitor. He's got talent. Had a real decent year for a rookie. To be a Laker fan this year, pretty good. Can't afford it, but they'll be on TV once or twice,
right? What I do like about that team is they won't. Those vets won't put up with LeVar Ball's bullshit. Like that's a team who will. I think he's got some hope there as far as how to develop mentally into an NBA player. I think the kid's got a good knowledge of the game, Lonzo Ball. Yeah. But I think those guys can trim the fat of his father kind of being too hands-on. I think that's the one benefit a Laker fan has.
Well, look, I don't think LeVar hurt anybody, maybe, but Luke Walton. It made it tough on Luke Walton last year for a time. And then they had him deported to where do you go overseas? Lithuania.
Yeah.
They got rid of him. They found out a way to get rid of him. But I don't think LeVar can talk all he wants. I think if LeBron can handle having Stevenson as a teammate, he can handle LeVar as being around the team and all that chatter. But I love the kid. I don't think kid's affected by the father, and unfortunately, he takes a lot of heat because of the father. And why doesn't the father understand that? Because the father's so into himself, he doesn't care.
Right.
But no, it's really interesting. The West has tremendous parity. Even the worst teams got better. All the worst teams got better. Sacramento, Phoenix, Dallas. Rough. Memphis, not so much. But if Conley comes back, and now you still have Gasol, and you could build around them a little bit. People forget Conley didn't play last
year. Right. Pete, where would you put if the playoffs? Let's throw this scenario out there. Say the playoffs start today. What seed are the Lakers looking at if you had to put a number on it, if that's even possible?
On how many wins?
Well, not so much wins, but like a seed. I mean, are they good enough to be a 3 seed, a 4? Or, are they top 2?
No.
Where would you put that team?
No, I don't think they're that good yet. No, I think there's too many good teams in the West that are proven.
Yeah. Plus the bad ones you just mentioned that are getting better. The West is is loaded.
They're going to beat themselves up. That's what they're going to do. Look, I think if the Lakers, make the playoffs, I think that's a score. That's a great season for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And be exciting. Now, if they do better than that, that means all those role players that they have, like Rondo and those guys, that means they really came through, and LeBron deferred to them to some extent. But again, good for the league, really good for the league. Didn't it hurts Cleveland, but Cleveland's proven it can recover.
Yeah, I agree, and I wanted to mention this. before I get to the one last thing, I want to talk, about your Patreon account because I love reading it. Do the Celtics have, if things unfold the way they're supposed to, the Celtics have a shot against Golden State if things don't change and things are supposed to play out like they are, which never happens. But do the Celtics have a shot against the Golden State?
We're really projecting now. Again, there's so much that has to happen. And,
yep, I agree.
We don't know. The health of Hayward and the chemistry and all that stuff. I don't know. I wish that they had gotten a proven big man, just another guy that can help Horford play power forward, and the guy would play center. That would have been, to me, the topper, and still could happen. As long as they don't bring back Big Baby.
Big Baby's going to the big house, I think.
Yes, I saw he's signing, ready to sign overseas or something. I never saw anything like it. The guy gets arrested a couple times. Now he's playing in the championship for the 3-on-3 tournament. The Celtics have a tribute for him when he comes into town. What? I know. What was that about? Let's have the tribute for Big Baby.
No, it was a 3-on-3. Yeah, you're right. It was a 3-on-3 tournament. I forget what it's called, but yeah, they gave him a little bit of a tribute, which was so awkward.
What? I didn't comment on that at the time. I don't know what the hell was happening. I think I was in shock. Danny had to approve that.
Yeah, I don't understand that, but I can't let you go.
We gotta end this because my battery's running down.
I can't let you go without you bringing up this one. Your stuff is the most readable stuff on the planet, Peter. I love reading about it. Are you going to do it this upcoming year? The Patreon account that you have?
I don't think so, Derek. I don't think so. I got a few columns I would love to do. I'm a little lazy right now. It's been hot, working outside and all that stuff. But I really would like to do the definitive Mark Jackson column. A lot of the stuff I shared with you tonight, but there's more. And, I've got a couple others that I really would like to do, but it's very hard and really miss the freedom of mind not to think about writing. What am I going to write? Have to comment on this, comment on that. I've let a few things go lately I haven't commented on. And, I know I should. That LeBron HBO barbershop, that definitely deserves a few comments. But, no, I don't think I'm going to do it. Well, don't hold me to it, but, the next few weeks will tell. Before camp, I might end it.
Well, you always have a home here, Peter, because I love you. I could listen to you talk NBA forever. You're easily my favorite analyst in any sport, and I mean that.
What's wrong with you? Jeez. Where Ryan is that?
I cannot thank you enough, Peter, man. I just love talking NBA with you. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Have a good year.
Thanks a lot, Peter.